Welcome back to Sports Talk with Brett. This is going to be my Big Ten preview. I did my SEC preview last week sometime, about 5 days ago I guess, and I had South Carolina winning that with a record of 12-1. And since they did win the SEC, you can go ahead and pencil them in the Final Four. I'll do my Final Four predictions once I get all these Power 5 conferences done. Tonight I'm going to do the ACC and the Big Ten. I'm going to start with the Big Ten right now, do the ACC in a little bit. Once I get all of them done, I'll do the Pac-12 maybe tomorrow or the next day, and the Big 12 last, because I'll go more in depth with the Big 12 since I am an Oklahoma fan. I'm going to go ahead and get this one done. Get the next one. At the end, we'll do all the Final Four. For this one, I'm going to start with the East, then the West, Conference Championship, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, and Newcomer of the Year. So let's get started. I have finishing at the bottom of the East, Indiana, with a conference record of 1-7 and a complete record of 4-8. I have them beating Indiana State in Bowling Green, starting off 2-0, losing at Missouri, losing to Maryland, beating North Texas, losing at Iowa, losing to Michigan State, losing at Michigan, losing to Penn State, losing at Rutgers, losing at Ohio State, and beating Purdue. Indiana, they have Kevin Wilson, and I think it's another down year. They just haven't been. This may be his last chance. He's definitely on the hot seat. So it's not. It may not be a great year for Indiana from what I can see. They have a pretty decently tough schedule, and they're not very good. Finishing right above them in the East, I have Rutgers. Rutgers, I have them winning at Washington State, winning against Howard, losing to Penn State, winning at Navy, winning against Tulane at home, losing to Michigan, at Ohio State, at Nebraska, losing to Wisconsin, beating Indiana, losing at Michigan State, and losing at Maryland. I have them with an identical 1-7 record in conference, but I have them at 5-7. No, I'm sorry. I have them at 5-7. I have Rutgers beating Indiana, which gives them the nod. Right above them in the East, I have Maryland at 2-6 in the East, in the Big Ten. I now have them at 5-7 as well. I have them beating James Madison and winning at South Florida, losing to West Virginia, winning at Syracuse, and winning at Indiana, losing to Ohio State, Iowa, at Wisconsin, at Penn State, losing to Michigan State, losing at Michigan, and finished the season beating Rutgers, which is a tough schedule. The Big Ten's got some good teams in it. They're very, very, very good this year, I think. Overall, I mean, not that they're very good, it's wide open. There's so many wide open conferences this year. I don't know one conference that I'm like, oh, that team's definitely going to win. So, finishing right above Maryland, I have probably, if what I have predicted goes, I have Michigan. I have Brady Hoke coaching his last season. I have Michigan finishing a mediocre 4-4 in conference and 6-6 overall. I know Michigan fans, if I have any Michigan fans that watch this, I'm probably going to get some hate, but listen to the schedule, and they got a pretty tough one. I have them beating Appalachian State. I have them losing at Notre Dame, which Notre Dame's going to be pretty good, so, I mean, I have them beating Miami of Ohio. And then the one toss-up game that I have them losing that they probably might win, but I'm picking them to lose, is against Utah, who scored the upset against Stanford last year. You know, I think they could beat Michigan this year. It is at the Big House, though, so we'll see. But that's the only lot. But so 7-5, I still think Brady Hoke would be gone. I have them beating Minnesota, winning at Rutgers, then losing to Penn State, who I think is going to be pretty good, losing at Michigan State, who I think is just a better team by far, beating Indiana, losing at Northwestern, which is a tough place to play, and a good, gritty team these last few years, beating Maryland, and losing at Ohio State. So it's not completely out of the realm of possibility for them to go 6-6, maybe 7-5. I don't see them. The only way I could see them going 8-4 is if they somehow could win at Northwestern, which would be very tough. And finishing right above Michigan, I have Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan State all tied, but by tiebreaker, I have Penn State finishing third at 7-1 with a record of 10-2. And I have Penn State losing to Central Florida. I have them beating Akron, winning at Rutgers, winning against UMass, beating Northwestern at home, winning at Michigan, losing to Ohio State, beating Maryland, winning at Indiana, winning against Temple at home, winning at Illinois, and I have them beating Michigan State at home to end the season, which would be an upset, but either way, I have them at 10-2, which, so if they lose to Michigan State, it's still 9-3. That's still a big season for Penn State, which I'm looking at their schedule is very possible. They don't have a very tough schedule. I think it's very possible for them to finish that. Then right above them, I have Ohio State at 7-1 and 10-2 as well. With Braxton Miller out, I think that maybe drop a game they shouldn't. Not that they shouldn't, but just it takes them from maybe what I would have had at 11-1 to 10-2 just based on Braxton Miller being out. I have them. Where am I having them at? I have them beating Navy at Navy. I have them losing to Virginia Tech. That's the game that I think they may win with Braxton Miller, and I think they'll lose early in the season with a freshman quarterback to a good defensive team in Virginia Tech. I have them beating Kent State and Cincinnati, winning at Maryland, beating Rutgers, winning at Penn State, beating Illinois at home, losing at Michigan State, who's a very good team. I have them finishing out the season winning at Minnesota and at home to Indiana and Michigan. So they have a pretty easy schedule as well, losing to Michigan State and Virginia Tech, who have two really good defenses. Then I have winning the East at 7-1 and 11-1 is Michigan State. And I have Michigan State beating Jacksonville State, winning at Oregon, winning at home against Eastern Michigan, beating Wyoming at home, beating Nebraska at home, winning at Purdue and Indiana, beating Western Michigan at home, beating Ohio State at home, winning at Maryland, beating Rutgers at home, and then losing at Penn State on the road to end the season. Penn State's a tough place to play. I think everyone's going to lose a game. And another one they could lose at Oregon, obviously. I have them beating Oregon at Oregon. I just think they're just a tough, gritty team that's just going to grind the ball, and they're just going to knock Oregon in the mouth. So I have them winning the East at 11-1. Then we go to the West. I have the bottom of the West. I have Purdue finishing 0-8 in conference with a 3-9 record. I have them beating Western Michigan and Central Michigan. I have them losing at Notre Dame. I have them losing to I have them beating Southern Illinois. I'm sorry. I have them losing to Iowa, losing at Illinois, losing to Michigan State, losing at Minnesota, losing at Nebraska, losing to Wisconsin, losing to Northwestern, and losing at Indiana. They have a pretty tough schedule for how weak their team is going to be this year. A lot of the teams I have that they could be a toss-up they have on the road, and a lot of the teams that they don't have a chance they have at home. So that's kind of where they got screwed up. Like, I think they could beat Illinois, but out at Illinois, I don't see it. I think they could play with Minnesota, but not at Minnesota. I think they could play with Indiana, but not at Indiana, and all those games seem to be on the road. Their home games are Wisconsin, Northwestern, Michigan State, Iowa, just teams that they don't really have a chance to beat anywhere, regardless of where it's at. Then right above them, I have Minnesota at 1-7, and I have Minnesota finishing 4-8. I have Minnesota beating Eastern Illinois and Middle Tennessee, losing at TCU, beating San Jose State, losing at Michigan, losing to Northwestern at home, beating Purdue, losing at Illinois, losing to Iowa, losing to Ohio State, losing at Nebraska, and losing at Wisconsin. Kind of the same thing with Minnesota. I know they're a decent team, but they go to Michigan. That's a loss. To TCU, I think they lose. Like I said, they play at Illinois, which I think they probably win at home. So they have a pretty tough schedule as well. So right above them, I have Illinois at 2-6 and finishing 5-7. I have them beating Youngstown State and Western Kentucky, losing at Washington in Peterson's first year. I have them beating Texas State, losing at Nebraska, beating Purdue, losing at Wisconsin, beating Minnesota, losing at Ohio State, losing at home to Iowa and Penn State, and losing at Northwestern. So they as well kind of have a tough deal. I think they could play with Northwestern, but definitely not at Northwestern. You get Purdue at home, Minnesota at home. So they have a pretty tough schedule as well. The West is pretty tough this year, I think. I think it's the tougher of the two for sure. The East is kind of top heavy, and Michigan State, Ohio State, and Penn State. The West has got 4 or 5 good teams that are all kind of even. Right above Illinois, I have Northwestern finishing 4-4 with an 8-4 record. I have Northwestern beating Cal, Northern Illinois, and Western Illinois, losing at Penn State, losing to Wisconsin, winning at Minnesota, losing to Nebraska at home, losing at Iowa, beating Western Michigan, winning at Notre Dame, winning at Purdue, and beating Illinois. So I think they finished the year at 8-4, which is, I think they were 7-5 last year after starting out like 5-0 or 6-0. I think they take a little step forward. I think that the guy out there, I can't think of the coach's name, who played there, Pat Fitzgerald, is building something really, really good in Northwestern, getting up there. I think within the next 3 or 4 seasons, he'll definitely be a 10-win team. So that's a good season for them. Finishing right above them with a bounce back year, I have Iowa finishing 6-2 and 10-2. I have Iowa, which if you hear their schedule, it's not very tough. I have them beating Northern Iowa, beating Ball State and Iowa State, winning at Pitt, winning at Purdue, beating Indiana at home. See, that's 6 games right there in a row that they shouldn't lose. That just aren't great teams. Then they go to Maryland, not a great team. They win that. They got Northwestern at home. I think I have them winning. They go to Minnesota, not a great team. They go to Illinois, not a great team. So that's 10-0. I have them 10-0 before they lose at home 2 times in a row to Wisconsin and Nebraska. So they don't even play some of the toughest teams. I mean, they have a really weak schedule. So 10-2 is not even close. Maybe the only game I see them losing on that schedule that I have them winning is maybe like at Maryland or at Pitt. But I think they have a real good shot at going 10-2. And then they may score an upset against Nebraska. I mean, I think they'll have a real solid year because of their schedule. Finishing second in the West, I have Nebraska at 6-2, and I have them at 9-3. Another good year, but not what Nebraska is used to. Pelini's gonna be in trouble if he doesn't win 10 games. I think. I mean, because he wins 8 or 9 games every single year, and it's kind of getting old with Nebraska. They're staying where they're at. I mean, they're a good team, but they're never that great team. I have them beating Florida Atlantic, McNeese State, and then winning at Fresno State before they lose at home to Miami. I have them beating Illinois at home, losing at Michigan State, winning at Northwestern, winning against Rutgers, and winning against Purdue. I have them losing at Wisconsin, beating Minnesota, and then going on the road and beating Iowa at Iowa, which would be a tough game, so I could barely easily see them going 8-4, but they could barely easily beat Miami at home too. So we'll see. I don't see them beating Wisconsin or Michigan State at their place, so I think they at least have 2 losses on the season. And then winning the West with a record of 8-0 in the conference and 12-0 is Wisconsin. I have them going undefeated in the entire season, just because I don't think their schedule is very tough. It's really, really, really weak. It's one of the weakest I've seen. They go to LS. No, they play in Dallas, I believe. Not Dallas. I don't know where they play at actually. They play LSU in the first week of the season, which LSU is a very, very young team. I see them catching them kind of off guard. Catching them before the LSU really heats up. So I see them beating LSU, playing LSU at a very good time. I think they play later in the season. LSU would have a really good chance of beating them. We're playing in that first game. I have Wisconsin winning. I have them beating Western Illinois, Bowling Green, South Florida, winning at Northwestern, beating Illinois at home, beating Maryland at home, winning at Rutgers, winning at Purdue. See, this is how terrible the schedule is. Beating Nebraska at home, best team they play all year at home, going to Iowa and winning. That's the best road game they have all year, Iowa. Then winning at home against Minnesota. So that's just such a weak schedule. It's not even funny. So you can easily see why I had them at 12-0. So I have Michigan State and Wisconsin playing in the Big Ten Championship, and I have Michigan State winning that game. Just because I just don't think Wisconsin is as good as Michigan State. Obviously, Wisconsin was undefeated because of how weak their schedule was. So that puts Michigan State there with South Carolina, each having one loss. You can pretty much bet that the Big Ten's probably going to get Michigan State into that Final Four. We'll see. I'll have to go through and see what I have after this with all the other conferences. But I have the Offensive Player of the Year being Melvin Gordon, running back at Wisconsin. I just think he's a dynamic player, and he's going to have a huge year this year. He doesn't have James White there anymore. It's just going to be him and solely him. So I think expect a big year. Defensive Player of the Year have Trey Waynes, cornerback at Michigan State, taking over for Darqueze Dennard. Going to fill right in. I think he's going to step right in and have a big year for Michigan State on that defense. He's going to be that boundary corner that Dennard leaves a hole with. So I think Trey Waynes is going to have a big year. Newcomer of the Year, I have J.T. Barrett, quarterback, Ohio State. Braxton Miller is gone. So they have redshirt freshman J.T. Barrett stepping in, and I expect him to be the best freshman because he's going to be a quarterback at Ohio State, and he needs to have a big year to fill the shoes of Braxton Miller. So that is my Big Ten preview. I kind of hurried through it because my last video is kind of long, and I know people don't want to sit there for 25 minutes and listen. I do. I listen to that kind of stuff because I'm a massive sports fan, but your average sports fan don't want to hear that. So, thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe. Watch my ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, like I said in the last video. It's for a great cause. Go follow Oklahoma Updated on Twitter. Follow B-Square1291 on Twitter. Go find me on Facebook. Friend me, Britt Brown. Don't forget to watch all my videos. Go follow Walk with Chappie. Get him a shout out. Follow the other OU guys. Season's coming, guys. We got a week left. I'm really pumped. Follow OU Sooner 56, Onakuno, Hambone. Who else we got? Oklahoma Sooners, they have good videos. There's so many guys with good videos. Just make sure to give them a subscribe, hit the like button. And thanks for watching Sports Talk with Britt. Until next time, see y'all.